All right. Hi. This is my name is Don Curtis, and this is the Book of Isaiah, chapter 11 today. So, chapter 11, verse 1, different tone than we've had over the past couple lessons. A good tone. I'm going to read 11, 1 through 9, and then we're going to parse some things in quite a bit of detail. So, chapter 11, verse 1. Then a shoot will spring from the stem of Jesse, and a branch from his roots will bear fruit. And the spirit of Adonai will rest on him, the spirit of wisdom and understanding, the spirit of counsel and strength, the spirit of knowledge and the fear of Adonai. And he will delight in the fear of Adonai, and he will not judge by what his eyes see, nor make a decision by what his ears hear. But with righteousness he will judge the poor, and decide with fairness for the afflicted of the earth. And he will strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he will slay the wicked. Also righteousness will be the belt about his loins, and faithfulness the belt about his waist. And the wolf will dwell with the lamb, and the leopard will lie down with the young goat, and the calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and a little boy will lead them. Also the cow and the bear will graze, their young will lie down together, and the lion will eat straw like the ox. The nursing child will play by the hole of the cobra, and the weaned child will put his hand on the viper's den. They will not hurt or destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth will be full of the knowledge of Adonai as the waters cover the sea. So this is an amazing prophecy. It speaks of a time when a lot of the turmoil and the predation that exists in a society will be no more. But I want to start all the way up at the top where it says, "Then a shoot will spring from the stem of Jesse, and a branch from his roots will bear fruit." Okay, who is this talking about? I mean, you could jump ahead and say, well, it's talking about Messiah, but why is it talking about Messiah? Why is it phrased this way? Let's begin with, who is the stem of Jesse? Okay, we have David here. Mm-hmm. Jesse is the father of David. So Isaiah here is, rather than saying David by name, he says, a shoot will spring from the stem of Jesse. And why he's referring to Jesse is is cause for some amount of speculation, and I'm going to give you my current theory on this, and then I'm going to develop why this is my theory. And it is because Jesse, as the father of a king, when Samuel came and said, "I have a horn of oil here, and I'm going to anoint a king from one of your sons," Jesse brought every son to him except the one that God had in mind, because David was the shepherd off in the field. And it wasn't until Samuel said, "Look, do you have any other sons?" And Jesse says, "Well, we got the little squirt out in the fields that we could bring in," and he was the one who was anointed. Now there is a parallel that is behind this verse here, which is the stem of Jesse, but then we have David. Okay, and David had several sons. And which of David's sons became king? Solomon? No, Solomon, right? Plain text, it's Solomon. But I want to go to some prophecies concerning the line of David. Okay, so we're going to start in 2 Samuel, verse 7.
Which chapter?
2 Samuel, chapter 7. And what it is that David has got this bright idea that he wants to build a temple, a house for Adonai. And Adonai comes and says, "No, it's not for you to do it, it's for one of your descendants to do it." Okay, so we're going to pick this up in verse 12. 2 Samuel 7:12. "When your days are complete and you lie down with your fathers, I will raise up your descendant after you, who will come forth from you, and I will establish his kingdom. He shall build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever." Okay, so there's a son that David is to have, whose throne of the kingdom will be forever. I will be a father to him, and he will be a son to me. When he commits iniquity, I will correct him with the rod of men and the strokes of the sons of men. But my loving kindness shall not depart from him, as I took it away from Saul, whom I removed from before you. And now verse 16. Your house and your king shall endure before me forever. Your throne shall be established forever. And in accordance with all these words and all this vision, so Nathan spoke to David. So the promise of a permanent lineage to David, conditional or unconditional?
Don't see any conditions.
It's a promise.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to do this. I am going to establish the throne of your kingdom forever. It's an unconditional promise. Now, let's go to 1 Kings chapter 9. And we're going to go to verse 3. Okay. This is Adonai speaking to Solomon, David's son, the one through whom the dynasty of the kingdom passed. Okay, so we have David, unconditional promise. Solomon, the first king after David. Adonai says this in 1 Kings 9:3. Adonai said to him, I have heard your prayer and your supplication which you have made before me. I have consecrated this house which you have built by putting my name there forever, and my eyes and my heart will be there perpetually, because Solomon had built a temple. As for you, if you will walk before me as your father David walked, in integrity of heart and uprightness, according to all that I have commanded you, and will keep my statutes and my ordinances, then I will establish the throne of your kingdom over Israel forever, just as I promised your father David.
But it isn't just as he promised David. This has got conditions.
This has got a condition. Okay, so there's a promise of an unconditional throne to David. There is a conditional promise to Solomon. As a matter of fact, it goes on to say this, verse 6, but if you or your sons indeed turn away from following me and do not keep my commandments and my statutes which I have set before you, and go and serve other gods and worship them, then I will cut off Israel from the land which I have given them, and the house which I have consecrated for my name I will cast out of my sight. So Israel will become a proverb and a byword of all the peoples. All right, so here we have a prophecy in 2 Kings 9. First of all, it says, Solomon, your dynasty is conditional. Now, Solomon, did he walk after his father David? I mean, he was a wise man, but did he fully walk after his father David? I see some heads shaking no. He married foreign wives.
Right.
He built temples to foreign idols for his foreign wives. He did things in violation of the Torah. And then he began a succession of kings that some were good, some were bad, some were good, some were bad. Everything that the condition is based on was violated. So guess what? This line that is promised in 2 Samuel, is it through Solomon? It's not through Solomon. Okay? Not only that, but here we have Isaiah, and we already know in our study of Isaiah that Assyria is coming down to destroy the northern kingdom, Israel, which in 2 Kings said, if you and your sons don't follow after me, I am going to cart Israel off and destroy the temple.
Which it sounds like he did that.
Sounds like he's about to do that. And Isaiah here knows he's about to do this. So there is a little hint here. When we come to Isaiah 11:1, then a shoot will spring from the stem of Jesse, and a branch from his roots will bear fruit. There's a hidden little message here that says, the line of Solomon is not the line of Messiah. Okay, now, here's a cool thing. We're going to show how this is developed in the other prophets. And we're actually going to go forward, if we may, to Jeremiah chapter 22. Jeremiah 22 marks the end of the dynasty of Solomon. Okay, so we're going to go to verse 28. Okay, Jeremiah 22:28. This is the end of the dynasty of Solomon right here. Jeremiah is speaking, and what has happened is Nebuchadnezzar has just come in from Babylon into Judea, and he captured the king, Jeconiah, also known as Jehoiachin, also known as Coniah to those who knew him best. Okay, so he went by three names. Coniah just sounds like a pet name, so, but Jehoiachin, Jeconiah, Coniah, he's known by all three. But Nebuchadnezzar has just carted him and his family and 10,000 craftsmen off to Babylon. Okay, and Jeremiah has this to say about that event, and this is in Jeremiah 22:28. Is this man Coniah a despised, shattered jar? Or is he an undesirable vessel? Why have he and his descendants been hurled out and cast into a land they had not known? Because they've just been captured, sent off to Babylon. O land, 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 hear the word of Adonai. Thus says Adonai, write this man down childless. He's not childless, he has a son. But write this man down childless.
Does that mean he's cutting off the nurse?
A man who will not prosper in his days, know what it says here, for no man of his descendants will prosper, sitting on the throne of David or ruling again in Judah.
No man.
Right? So here it is. This is the end of the line of Solomon. Now, this is one of those cases. You're going to hear me talk a lot about chapter divisions. They're dumb. Sometimes chapter divisions hide truth. Because Jeremiah is not saying, end of story, tomorrow I'll come back and I'll have something else to say. He is still flowing with what he's saying about Jeconiah, and the fact that this man is childless, because he goes on in chapter 23. Woe to the shepherds who are destroying and scattering the sheep of my pasture, declares Adonai. Therefore, thus says Adonai, God of Israel, concerning the shepherds who are tending my people, which is the kings and the princes and the judges and things like that. You have scattered my flock and driven them away, and you have not attended to them. Behold, I'm about to attend to you for the evil of your deeds, declares Adonai. So you shepherds, I've already carted Jeconiah off. I'm about to scatter you as well. Then he says, then I myself would gather the remnant of my flock out of all the countries where I have driven them and bring them back to their pasture, and they will be fruitful and multiply. Now this jumps to modern day.
Yeah, John 10.
This is where, the Jews are scattered across the entire world. So you notice how we've moved from Jehoiachin, Jeconiah, Coniah being carted off to Babylon, to a statement against the shepherds of Israel that have caused this to happen, and the fact that Adonai is going to scatter his people across the entire world, and then he is going to be their shepherd and bring them back. Okay? Verse 4, I will raise up shepherds over them, and they will tend them, and they will not be afraid any longer, nor be terrified, nor will any be missing, declares Adonai. And now look what he says, and let's note how this connects with Isaiah. Behold, the days are coming, declares Adonai, when I will raise up for David a righteous branch. Solomon's cut off, a new branch is promised. I will raise up for David a righteous branch. So what this is saying, and we're going to develop this further, and we're going to connect it to the New Testament. But what this is saying is that you got to go all the way back to David, and another one of his descendants is going to be we're going to trace Messiah through another one of his descendants. It's not going to be through Solomon, because Solomon's line is dead here. Okay? So Jeconiah is cursed. His line is cursed. No one of his descendants will sit on the throne of David ever. But I'm going to raise up for David a righteous branch. And we go back to Isaiah 11, the stem of the root of Jesse and a righteous branch. Even back in Isaiah, we have this notion of a branch that will be raised up, and he will be the one on whom the Spirit of Adonai is resting, and who will judge righteously and be the source of peace.
Don, is this it where in John 10, where Jesus says, I am the good shepherd? And
sure.
So he is actually saying, hey, I am
the shepherd, and I'm the shepherd that will bring my people back. And yes. Okay, so anyway, verse 5. Behold, Jeremiah 23:5. Behold, days are coming, declares Adonai, when I will raise up for David a righteous branch, and he will reign as king. and act wisely, and do justice and righteousness in the land. Well, what did we just read back in Isaiah 11? He will reign, and he will not decide with what his ears hear, nor what his eyes see, but with righteousness he will judge the poor and the afflicted, and decide with fairness for the afflicted of the earth. So, and in 6, in his days Judah will be saved, and Israel will dwell securely, and this is the name by which he will be called. Adonai is our righteousness. This is the new covenant. All right? So, here's Jeremiah. The line of Solomon is dead. There's a branch from David that will emerge, and he will reign as king, and he will be the Messiah reigning as king on the land. Okay? Now, what's interesting is Jeremiah was fascinated by this because he had to say it all over again. So if we go to Jeremiah 33, 14, he says this all over again. Behold, days are coming, declares Adonai, when I will fulfill the good word which I have spoken concerning the house of Israel and the house of Judah. In those days and at that time, I will cause a righteous branch of David to spring forth. And he shall execute justice and righteousness on the earth. In those days, Judah will be saved, and Jerusalem will dwell in safety, and this is the name by which she will be called. Adonai is our righteousness. Now, I just noticed this. Back in the previous, it was, this is the name by which he will be called. Here, it goes to the feminine. This is the way that name by which she will be called. I don't know that there's anything significant there, it's just that I just noticed it. What is important is Adonai is our righteousness. And we who are part of the new covenant, isn't that that's what we say? Will any of us stand before Adonai and say, you got to let me in because, you know, I've been good. I've been a righteous man all my life. No, I will stand before Adonai and say, you are my righteousness. You always have been. So this is a prophecy of the new covenant as it applies to the Messiah, as it applies to, as it applies to us. And notice here where Jeremiah continues to go. This is 33:17. For thus says Adonai, David shall never lack a man to sit on the throne of the house of Israel. And here we are all the way back to 2 Samuel and the unconditional covenant. But it is not through Solomon. It is through someone else. Okay. Now, one of the other things that you don't do when you're studying the scriptures is stop before things get interesting. So we're going to continue on here because a lot of people stop at 17. But verse 18 has a message that I'm going to pass on to you guys. And this is a total parenthesis from what I want to say. But it's got to be said because the scriptures say it, and now is as good time as any. We're all comfortable with the idea David shall never lack a man to sit on the throne of the house of Israel. But look what it says in verse 18. And the Levitical priest shall never lack a man before me to offer burnt offerings, to burn grain offerings, and to prepare sacrifices continually. And let me just tell you briefly what this means. And one of these days, I'll go into this a little bit more thoroughly. In the Messianic kingdom, there will be a temple. And there will be Jewish priests in that temple, Levitical priests in that temple doing burnt offerings and everything else, the entire order of service. The sacrifices will be going on in the Messianic kingdom. They are not over and done with. Just briefly to show you the confidence that this has, if you go to the very last chapter of Exodus, which I don't remember the number, I just know it's the last chapter. It is chapter 40. And I'm just going to go to 15 very briefly. Because Moses is anointing Aaron and his two sons as priests over Israel. And I just want to point out here what's said here. You shall anoint them even as you have anointed their father, that they may minister as priests to me, and their anointing will qualify them for a perpetual priesthood throughout their generations. God never intended the priesthood to end with Jesus. Okay, now, let me just explain this theologically a little bit. Jesus is our new high priest, but he's a high priest in heaven. On earth, he can't be a priest because he's of the tribe of Judah, And men from the tribe of Judah cannot be priests. But we have the promise of a perpetual priesthood for the descendants of Aaron. So on earth, in the temple, which is a copy of the temple in heaven, the Aaronic priesthood will continue to do its functions in the Messianic kingdom. But that does not mean that Jesus is still not our high priest in the heavenly realm and the author of our new covenant. It's just that the earthly priesthood is a shadow of his priesthood. Okay? What we're going to see is in the priesthood of those days, all the sacrifices will point to the high priesthood of Jesus. They will be instructive in that way. Okay? But that's all I want to say there. Let's go to Zechariah. I'm going to go to 2 chapters in Zechariah, one that is sort of foundational, and then one that again connects with what we're talking about here. And actually it just connects with what I was just talking about in terms of the priesthood and things like that. So this actually is going to be kind of cool. Zechariah chapter 3. Verse 6. Chapter 3, verse 6. The angel of Adonai admonished Joshua, saying, Thus says Adonai of hosts, if you will walk in my ways, and if you will perform my service, then you will also govern my house, and also have charge of my courts, and I will grant you free access among those who are standing here. Now listen, Joshua, the high priest, you and your friends who are sitting in front of you, indeed they are men who are a symbol. So Joshua is declared to be a symbol. Joshua the high priest. Another way we could call Joshua is we could call him Yeshua the high priest, or if we want to go into the Greek, we could say that he is Jesus the high priest. I mean, the name is exactly the same. You know, Joshua, Yeshua, Jesus, it's all the same. You are a symbol, for behold, I'm going to bring in my servant, the branch. All of a sudden we have the branch emerging here again. Okay? For behold, the stone which I have set before Joshua, on one stone are 7 eyes. Behold, I will engrave an inscription on it, declares Adonai of hosts, and I will remove the iniquity of that land in one day. So a symbol of a high priest who removed the iniquity of Israel in a single day. Okay? Happens to have the name of Jesus. Okay. Let's go to chapter 6. Verse 9. The word of Adonai also came to me, saying, Take an offering from the exiles, from Heldai, Tobiah, and Jediah, and you go the same day and enter the house of Josiah the son of Zephaniah, where they have arrived from Babylon. I have no idea what these names mean. Okay, they're recorded. That's just it. But the important thing is that Zechariah was to go to them, take up an offering, and with that offering, make a couple of crowns. So it says, Take silver and gold and make an ornate crown and set it on the head of Joshua, the son of Jehozadak, the high priest. Okay. Now, the New American Standard says an ornate crown. Actually, what it says is crowns. There's a silver crown and there's a gold crown. Both of them apparently are set on the head of Joshua, the high priest, just Jesus, the high priest, who is the son of Jehozadak, which means Adonai is my righteousness. So go back to Jeremiah. This is the name by which he will be called. We could say this is the name by which he will be called Jehozadak. Adonai is our righteousness. So here we have Joshua, Jesus, the high priest, the son of Jehozadak, and he's just has had 2 crowns put on his head. And it goes on to say this. Yes, it is he who will build the temple of Adonai, and he who will bear the honor and sit and rule on his throne. Do you see what it's saying here? He will be over the house. He will be over the house of Adonai. He will be over the temple. He will also sit on his throne. One of the crowns is the crown as high priest. The other crown is the crown of king. Okay, and he's called the branch, right? Because it says here, yes, it is he who will build the temple of Adonai, and he will bear the honor and sit and rule on his throne. Thus he will be a priest on his throne, and the council of peace will be between the 2 offices. So Jesus, this Joshua the high priest, is also a king. Okay, and he's a symbol. See, it doesn't say that he's actually this in his day, but we're told in chapter 3 that Joshua is a symbol, and he is a symbol of one who brings a unity between the two offices. So we come to Jesus. Jesus is a high priest. He's our new high priest. He is a high priest in heaven. He can't be a priest on earth, but he can be the priest in heaven. On earth, he is of the tribe of Judah, and he can be a king. Okay? All right? Now, let's go to the New Testament. We'll go to Matthew. And what I love about where we're going here is no scripture is wasted. Okay? There's a fundamental problem with the line of Solomon being cut off with Jehoiachin. And that is the legal right to the throne is through Solomon and Jehoiachin. The legal right to the throne doesn't suddenly say, oh, what are we going to do? Jehoiachin can't be king. Who do we pick from David? The legal right to the throne is still through Jehoiachin. So when we come to Matthew, and we had the genealogy of Jesus, we'll begin with verse 11, Matthew 1:11. Josiah became the father of Jeconiah and his brothers. Well, we know about Jeconiah. This is where the line of Solomon was cut off. At the time of the deportation to Babylon. After the deportation to Babylon, Jeconiah became the father of Shealtiel, and Shealtiel the father of Zerubbabel. Zerubbabel was the father of Abihud, and so forth. And then we come to 16. Jacob was the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary, by whom Jesus was born, who is called the Messiah. So Joseph, the non-biological father of Jesus, is of the line of Jeconiah. Joseph carried the legal right to the throne. But he was not Jesus' father, because Jesus what? He was born of a virgin. So through Joseph, Jesus is conferred the legal right to the throne. Now let's go to Luke. And this is Luke chapter 3. Now Luke runs his genealogy backwards. Matthew runs his genealogy forwards. He runs from the ancestor to the present. Luke starts with Jesus and he runs backwards. But I'm going to begin in, let's say, 23, Luke 3:23. When he began his ministry, Jesus himself was about 30 years of age, being as was supposed the son of Joseph. As was supposed, but not really. He was really, in a sense, the son of Eli, who is probably Mary's dad. Okay, because what we have in Luke is the biological genealogy of Jesus. Okay? And when we come down to verse 31, the son of Maleah, the son of Menah, the son of Mattatha, the son of Nathan, the son of David. Here's David. Got Solomon. We got Nathan. Solomon goes up to Jeconiah. The Solomonic dynasty is cut off. We reset this branch that from David, named Nathan, comes, and he is the genealogy to Mary. Joseph brings the legal right to the throne. Mary brings the branch genealogy from David. Scripture's fulfilled. This is mind. You have all these discrete little elements coming together, going all the way back to a prophecy concerning David, a prophecy concerning Solomon. One is conditional, the other is unconditional. Isaiah, in the days of his prophecies, he's seeing that the conditions for the Solomonic dynasty are not there. Solomon blew it. Isaiah was one of the kings in Isaiah's day was King Ahaz, who was a terrible king. He was an unrighteous king. And Isaiah's looking at this and saying, you know what? The line of Solomon may not be there. And so we come to chapter 11, verse 1. Then a shoot will spring from the stem of Jesse, and a branch from his roots will bear fruit. So now this is not as clear as the other verses we went to. But I think this little reference to Jesse here is to let us pause and say, well, what happened with Jesse? He had, 7 sons? 6 that he thought were worthy of being a king, but it was this little backwater of a boy that was actually the one who was chosen. David, he had his sons. Solomon was the one who became the king. But it's another son that will be the root of the branch of Messiah. And Jesus just miraculously comes along, virgin birth, from the line of David, with a father who can confer the legal right of kingship. And he is our king, and he is the branch, and he is our high priest, and he is all these things that the Old Testimony has said he would be. Psalm 110, which is as a messianic prophecy, is more quoted in the New Testament than any other messianic prophecy. Psalm 110, various parts of it. But it reads like this: Adonai says to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet. Adonai will stretch forth your strong scepter from Zion, saying, rule in the midst of your enemies. Your people will volunteer freely in the day of your power. In holy array from the womb of the dawn, your youth are to you as the dew. Then suddenly, so this is the king. Then all of a sudden, Psalm 110 switches gears, and it says this: Adonai has sworn and will not change his mind. You are a priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek. So this is Messiah, who is king, and a prophecy stuck here that Messiah is also the priest. And it says in verse 5, then the Lord is at your right hand. He will shatter kings in the day of his wrath. He will judge among the nations. He will fill them with corpses. He will shatter the chief men over a broad country. He will drink from the brook by the wayside. Therefore he will lift up his head. So he will rule as a conquering king. He will rule in justice and so forth. So let's, with that out of the way, let's go back to Isaiah chapter 11 and go through the rest of this. So then a shoot will spring from the stem of Jesse, and a branch from his roots will bear fruit. The spirit of Adonai will rest on him, the spirit of wisdom and understanding, the spirit of counsel and strength, the spirit of knowledge and the fear of Adonai. And don't you wish that our rulers were plugged in like this? I mean, is this not what? And basically, you know, we in our various walks of life have arenas of authority. You know, we are not all subjugated to everybody. There are areas where we have authority. I have, you know, Antonio is the programmer of my staff. I have authority over him. James has authority over me. You know, yeah.
He doesn't listen.
You know, we have a line of authority, and basically, one of the things that we would want to look at in verse 2 is, when we are in authority, this is what we would like as well, is for the spirit of Adonai to rest on us in our authority. And that would be the spirit of wisdom and understanding. Let me tell you what, to a Hebrew, the word wisdom is. It's skill. I mean, it's skill for living. Wisdom is skill for living. I have a wisdom in computer programming. I have a wisdom in application design. It's wisdom and understanding. It's knowing my craft. Okay? Wisdom and understanding means that in an area of your life, when you have wisdom and understanding, you understand what is required in that area to prosper and succeed in that area. So for Messiah to have wisdom and understanding as the ruler of the Messianic kingdom is that he is wise in terms of what needs to be done, what policies to have, how to administer justice. He has understanding of his situations and understanding of the world. See, there's this thing that we have in us, and it's called a worldview. And we all have a worldview because we can't sit and ponder all the details of every stupid little decision we have to make in life. So we have a worldview that is nothing more than a shortcut that says, this is what I'm going to decide, and I'm going to decide it quickly because this is the way the world works. Okay? And it's absolutely great if the model of the world in your head matches the decision you just made on that worldview. Problems come when the worldview, the actual state of the world is different from how you perceive it. Very simply, an atheist has a worldview that there is no God. We, as Christians, have a worldview that says there is a God. An atheist won't pray. We will pray, and we expect it to make a difference. Okay? Now, if the atheist is right, our prayers, they're just wasted breath, wasted time. Or, let's put it this way, if we are marched off and we are killed for our faith, if the atheist worldview is correct, we have just wasted a precious resource, which is me, right? So worldview matters. This wisdom and understanding means that Messiah will have a completely correct worldview. The spirit of counsel and strength, the ability to plug into what the Father is saying needs to happen in terms of advice and things like that, but also he is strong in his spirit. And the spirit of knowledge and the fear of Adonai. He knows his God. Of course, because he is God, but nevertheless, as a man, he knows his God, and he's full of the spirit and the fear of Adonai. And he will delight in the fear of Adonai, and he will not judge by what his eyes see, nor make a decision by what his ears hear. He will not be judging by outward appearance. Let's go back to Jesse, right? With Jesse, when Samuel is coming into Jesse to decide on who's king, he looks at the first son that Jesse brings him, and he says, boy, this would make a great king. And what does Adonai say to him? Man judges by the outward appearance, but God judges by the heart. So here, this branch of Jesse, when he is making judgment, will not judge by outward appearance, but he will understand the heart. He will have counsel concerning the heart, and he will be able to judge correctly according to the heart. With righteousness he will judge the poor and decide with fairness for the afflicted of the earth. And this is a true justice. Justice for the poor can work one of two ways. The most prominent one is that justice is denied. You don't have enough money to pay me. You don't have enough money to get a good lawyer. Therefore, you have no justice. Okay. The other thing is that because of compassion, because you have this sympathy or compassion or for the poor and their state, that you deny justice to a wealthier person. Simply because of compassion. What Jesus will do is he will decide with fairness. He will decide rightly. And that will be the key thing to the justice that he brings forth. So with righteousness he will judge the poor and decide with fairness for the afflicted of the earth. And he will strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and the breath of his lips he will slay the wicked. And also righteousness will be the belt about his loins, and faithfulness the belt about his waist. He is a good king. And the result of this is verses 6 through 9. And this is poetry. Okay, I know there's these paintings that show the Messianic kingdom, and it's got, lions and lambs, laying down together and so forth. This is poetry. We know that there are people on the earth that have a predatory nature. Our kids aren't safe around them. We aren't safe around them. They would as soon lop off our heads as anything else, as sneeze. They are wicked. They are predators. They are wolves. They are lions. They are vipers. They are cobras. They're bears. And we are not safe around them. Except that when Messiah begins to execute his justice, the wolves and the bears and the lions and the cobras and the vipers have a change of nature. And in that change of nature, there then becomes peace. And that's what he's talking about here. The wolf will dwell with the lamb. Not because the lamb has become like the wolf, but the wolf has lost its predatory nature. Wolves like to eat lambs, but not here. The leopard will lie down with the young goat. The calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and the little boy will lead them. The picture here is a little boy is able to walk among lions and leopards and so forth, and in fact lead them and be safe. The cow and the bear will graze together, their young will lie down together, and the lion will eat straw like an ox. And see, this is why we know that when it's talking about here, it is the nature of the predatory beast that has changed. The lion is no longer there to eat raw meat that he has killed by his predation. He will eat straw like an ox. He will be satisfied with living a righteous life. The nursing child will play by the hole of the cobra, and the weaned child will put his hand on the viper's den. So even the very youngest of children in the Messianic kingdom will be safe. And then verse 9, 11:9, and I would encourage you to commit this to memory. 11:9 actually is my favorite verse in the entire Bible. And it says this, "They will not hurt or destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth will be full of the knowledge of Adonai as the waters cover the sea." The reason this is my favorite verse is that it is a huge correlation between knowing God and being good. Okay? Knowing God comes first. You know, they will not harm or destroy in all my holy mountain. Why? For the earth will be full of the knowledge of Adonai as the waters cover the sea. The presence of Adonai on the earth will be such that men and women and children will know their God in a very, very distinct, unique, full, complete, intimate way. And in that knowledge, their characters will conform to his character. Those of us, those areas in our lives that are wolfish and bearish and lionish, okay, we all have them. I mean, put me around a regulator, and you'll see the predator come out. Put me in a TSA line, you know, you'll see the predator come out. I mean, it just causes a rage to come up in me. Okay. Well, to fully know my God means that I would reach the point where that rage is no more. You know, that I will be at peace because I have and it says here, the earth will be full of the knowledge of Adonai as the waters cover the sea. Deep, full, 70%, right? I mean, 70% of the earth's surfaces are the seas. And the earth will be full of the knowledge of Adonai. And because of that, there will be peace, there will be justice, and life will be good in the Messianic kingdom. Until Satan is released and he stirs up the nations again, but that's another story. Okay, right. This is a good stopping point, but we're not done because we have the rest of chapter 11 where the nations are coming in, and then we have a great praise song in chapter 12. But we'll get to that next week. So, as always, thank you for your attention, and thank you to those who will be listening on YouTube. Okay.